Nigeria's electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, has postponed Governorship and States Assemblies elections by 1 week. INEC is reported to have reached the decision after the court granted its request to reconfigure the Bimodal Voters Accreditation System, BVAS. The commission approached the court on Monday and its request was approved on Wednesday. A time span, it said, is too short to get the BVAS operating in a better condition. The latest development has divided opinions, especially in the wake of the presidential candidates in the recently concluded elections, approaching the Presidential Election Tribunal to access to the BVAS. And politics headquarters today would analyze the latest decision by INEC, its pros and its cons. You're welcome to the program. Now, joining me for this discussion, I have Dotun Ojon, Public Affairs Analyst, and Adewale Ajadi, Public Affairs Analyst, who joins us live from the United Kingdom. One welcome to you both, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the program.
It's good to be here.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Dotun. Why did INEC postpone the Governorship and State House of Assembly elections, and what impact did the ruling by the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal have on this decision that was taken by INEC?
I think legally, INEC has started within the purview of both the law that created it and the one that supports its operations. So legally, INEC has not done anything wrong. But again, this is actually generating a lot of controversies within the community based on the fact that there's been a problem of trust with INEC over the past election. What I discovered is that INEC actually overpromised, and they didn't do a lot of strategic research into the problem that they might encounter in the process of the presidential election. You agree with me that BVAS has actually been deployed in some select states during the one-off elections here and there. And you will not compare one-off election with the presidential election that has to be done across the nation. So I think this is why a lot of people are a bit skeptical about the intention of INEC to reconfigure the BVAS system at this point. And they call it changing the goalposts in the midst of in the middle of a game, which is actually not acceptable. But again, we can also continue to talk logically about the fact that maybe the goalpost is actually somewhat bad, which is what we are experiencing at the system. So if INEC had been able to convince the Nigerian people that it was actually transparent enough during the first election, I think all the uproar that is coming out now for this particular governorship election will have been unnecessary. But again, just as I said the other time, they've acted within the ambit of the law.
Thank you, Dr. I'd like to bring in Adewale into the conversation. What's your take on the ruling of the Federal Court of Appeal, and how have the various political parties reacted to the court's decision?
Well, I think we should start first by asserting the institutional responsibility of INEC for Nigerian elections backed by law and in practice. If you look at the review of the presidential elections, even the people who are the observers making noise, in all cases, signed off to the fact that BVAS worked in 99% of the polling units, that in 8% of the polling units where there was difficulties, they were replaced. And that additional they were fixed, and additional 2% were replaced. The reality is that nobody
sorry to interrupt you, Adewale. I just need to get this clear. When you say it worked in terms of checking biometrics and yes.
Let's not confuse BVAS with IREV. They're two different enterprise systems. BVAS is the accreditation of voters. And there's nobody on record that said BVAS did not work. Okay. And there's nobody on record that said BVAS was manipulated in any material particular way. BVAS has evolved into the present state over 3 elections. So let's not muddy the waters. The second thing we have to bear in mind is that INEC has tried to do something that all across the world has similar problems. Anytime you're going to execute an enterprise system and you're going to go live with millions of people, there is that remote chance that when you go live, there's going to be a problem. And in all cases, by the 4th day, 85% of the votes were uploaded, 85%. Now, let's now look at how we are reacting to this. As my colleague said, or the gentleman on the other side, it's very clear that we do not trust any institution of the Nigerian government.
There's a trust deficit.
And at any given point in time, when we have competition for opportunities and power, we dramatize and amplify any problem that we see. But I venture to you that you should go and look at every single observer and look at the material particular of what they've said. And they have not substantiated anything that suggests that the election was not credible or was untrustworthy. And therein lies where the decision of the Court of Appeal stands. The Court of Appeal has made a decision on the law of the land. And in every country where institutions work, the institution is given the benefit of doubt until evidence is collected to the contrary. And right now, there's no evidence to the contrary that INEC has behaved in any material way that's undermined the effective responsibility that's been given under the law.
I'm happy you established the fact that there's a trust deficit between Nigerians and any government institution, and most people started saying that, the process has been compromised because INEC did promise that the results will be uploaded in real time on the IREV portal. And because they didn't do that immediately, people thought, they were manipulating results and all of that. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that there's a tendency for us to think that there's a silver bullet. At least technology is a silver bullet. It's never a silver bullet. If you look at the Obama attempt at Medicare in the US, you see a classic example. You see many examples across the world. It's not just that. But having said that, the law of the land is what Nigerians should look at. And the law gives INEC the get-out clause to choose the methodology to upload if it finds it appropriate. And actually, I think it gives discretion to the chairman of INEC to do that. And so it is not, nothing has been done against the law of Nigeria. And our perception is actually the perception of people in the south of Nigeria who have developed a system of intimidating the Nigerian state when their interest is being challenged in any material way. And it's not even all of the south of Nigeria. It's certain sections of the intelligentsia that do that. And they do it very well. But the problem is this, that by the time they finish casting aspersions on every institution of government, there'll be none left standing for them to run.
Thank you, Adewale. I'd like to bring Dotun into this conversation at this point. Now, Dotun, you've been in active politics yourself. You've contested elected office in Nigeria. How will this postponement of the elections by INEC affect political parties, and what changes will they need to make to their campaigns? What strategies can they use to adjust their campaigns and messaging for the new election date? INEC has said, they can go on with their campaigns. Will this work in their favor or against them?
In fairness, in the Nigeria practice, any postponement of election like this always put additional burden on political parties, and that's why a lot of them may actually not be happy. When you talk about budgeting, you talk about pre-primary budget, you talk about post-primary budget, and sometimes because of the logistics movement, you even talk about the budget for the day of election, because majority of the agents that you're going to deploy, you may need to support them in one way or the other, and this amount, this runs to millions of naira. In some cases, even hundreds of millions in some cases, depending on what election you are executing at every point in time. So from the angle of a person who has been an administrator of a political party who has also run for elective position, is going to be a lot of burden on some of these political parties, honestly, in terms of financing, budgeting, and logistics and execution. But having said that, it also has afforded them an opportunity to actually market their manifestos to their several communities. For example, the young people that we call new generation voters who have actually populated our electionary process can actually be appealed to within this 1 week using their various means of reaching out to them, including the social media. So I think it's a mixture of good and bad. But most importantly, at the end of the day, what will matter is whether the election is credible enough to have provided somebody that will serve the interests of the Nigerian people. So it's either good or bad until we actually have something credible that will produce representatives and leaders within our communities that will actually represent our interests very well.
Okay, thank you, Dotun. Adewale, in your opinion, is the 1 week postponement enough time to have the petitioners inspect the 176,000 BVAS machines and also for the Commission to reconfigure them in time for the governorship elections that have been slated for 18th of March?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think that it's a better position than we were in as of yesterday. Imagine if yesterday INEC had said, okay, we are going to go ahead, we are going to reconfigure the machines and we are going to use them on Saturday. And then disaster strikes. It would have been so bad. And you know, the concerns of those petitioners to be able to look at the BVAS machine in the first place was allowed by the tribunal for the very reasons of the fact that we're a low trust country. We don't trust anything that we are not in control of. So this is a wonderful opportunity for INEC to regroup, to make sure that the software is working, to make sure that the BVAS is working, and to make sure that it can deliver even better than the 91 to 92% of impact that they had in the presidential elections. And that's certainly my hope. But whenever it comes to technology, it's not a silver bullet. Especially in a low-level infrastructure country like Nigeria, there are many things that are unforeseen and unforeseeable. So you have to have contingencies. I hope they have contingencies for all eventualities.
Thank you, Adewale. Doctor, talking about the litigation and what happened in court yesterday. Now, what is INEC's position on the litigants inspecting election materials? And how will the Commission ensure that all the litigants have access to the material they need to pursue their cases in court? Because, I mean, it's never happened before. And they've also given a definite date for the governorship and House of Assembly elections to take place March the 18th. Are they sure that they can go through all of this on time and still meet the deadline?
I think INEC is under a very serious pressure at the moment, and postponing the election by 2 weeks will have actually been met with a lot of criticism and condemnation. So I think it's a combination of being strategic and being truthful, and comparing it with the reality of what is acceptable within our community, owing to the fact that, like Mr. Adewale said, that we have trust deficit within our community. So whether they will be able to meet up this thing is actually a different ballgame within the time frame that they have. But again, they will continue to work because this is actually the most intense period of their calendar. I know they've prepared for this over the years. Even I know that they will be bringing in some more hands to actually assist at this material time. But like I said, we are just believing that within the next 7 days or thereabout, INEC will be able to do what he said he would be able to do. But if they are unable, the law still permits them, as a matter of fact, to actually shift the date of the election. it's completely under their jurisdiction to appoint time. The only thing that can constrain them is the reality of, is it 180 days, if they actually want every litigation to be concluded before swearing in. If not for this, they have the power to even continue to shift the election to the material time that they think that is appropriate for them. So we believe that, let's just continue to believe that the next 1 week they will be able to do what they said they would do. But if it goes the other way around, they still have the power to actually shift it further.
Thank you, Dotun. Now, Adewale, I'm not sure if your background is in tech, but can you provide details on the process of backing up and reconfiguring the BVAS machines, and what steps should be taken to ensure that the machines are free from tampering or other forms of interference before the rescheduled elections?
Unfortunately, my background is not in tech. I'm a lawyer and an economist. So tech is so far away from me, as you can imagine. But I have been involved in launching enterprise firmwares in different jobs. And it's a very, very difficult thing. But backing it up is the critical part of it. And I suspect that what they would have done is make sure that individually, the BVAS machines have a backup system of their own, and then there's a collective place in which they can be downloaded. I don't think that should be a problem if they're not damaged in any material way. And I don't think there's any suggestion that the BVAS machines have been damaged wholesale. The second thing that we have is that most of the figures that they would want to download and characters they want to download have already been uploaded on the IRF. I think as of today, we are very close to 90%, if we are not over 90%. So it is very unlikely that the problem will be downloading, it will be reconfiguring the machines so that they are not in any way compromised for accrediting voters by the next election.
Thank you. Dotun, looking at, we've established the fact that we operate in a low trust environment, and Nigerians have a trust deficit when it comes to government institutions and the government in general. And knowing what has happened in the aftermath of the presidential elections, the complaints, and people making all sorts of allegations, what steps should INEC take? And politicians do have a way of pushing the envelope and blowing things out of proportion just for their own interest. What would it take to assuage Nigerians' fears that, look, this process has been done with integrity? The machines, we could verify the integrity of the machines and their data so that when Nigerians go back to the polls for the governorship elections, you don't have doubting Thomases. Because I say this because political parties will be involved in the inspection process as the court granted their prayers.
Yes, I think even beyond taking the political parties to inspect, one very important thing that I think INEC needs to improve upon is to know that they are not communicating to receive applaud. They're actually communicating to give clarity to people. I think the way they communicated the issue of this BVAS and IRF to people was not really clear enough. And that's why if you're a communication expert and you actually studied the entire communication process, you would think that INEC deliberately actually shot itself in the leg by telling the people that, in fact, I have most of their communication line and start by telling the people that, once you vote from the polling unit, we're going to snap the result, send it to IRF before the announcement is done.
So, do you believe INEC overpromised and underdelivered?
That is the problem. That is the problem. So when you overpromise, and this is something that has never happened before, you have not done this on a national scale before. This is the first time you will be doing it. And when you must let the people know that you also still have the power to fall back to the paper document. But you kept telling the people that, this thing will be transmitted from the polling unit. And as a result of that, I can have access to it anywhere I may be. So far, I have internet on my gadget and facility. So when this did not happen, the people began to think that INEC has manipulated the system. So the manipulation they are talking about is not even, didn't happen during the election. The manipulation happened before the election, in the process of communicating to the people and telling them the intention of INEC. There's no doubt about the fact that we have come a very long way. From 1999 to here, we have evolved as a nation. Politically, INEC has improved on its operations. In fact, security forces, security agencies have also improved so greatly. But this is what I'm saying. You know that you have a new generation of, and if anything had happened, I would have particularly held INEC responsible, because you had an understanding and you published this understanding that there are new set of voters that are just registering for the first time. These are people that are seemingly having a problem with the governance of their state. And when you overpromise this set of people, when you told them that, oh, once you
but Dotun, it's not only, voter education is not only the responsibility of INEC. Civil society also does a lot in voter education. And there's only so much INEC can do. Don't you think other people should also take responsibility for this?
A rallying power when it comes to voter education. Even political party. I am an administrator of a political party, for example. We also have, what's it called? The serious-minded political party, we always have budget for voter education. But the rallying point is INEC. INEC works 365 days of the year, with or without election. What are they supposed to be doing during the period? Engaging the people, telling them that this is how things are supposed to be done. But on this issue of BVAS, and there was a gap, a communication gap that was not properly explained to the people, especially the new entrant into the political system. And these are the people that can hit the street. These are the people that can carry banners. You didn't explain to them that you are going to fall back, that you have the power. Meanwhile, you know it's in your status book. But the question is that how many people actually go to the books to know what the book says? Okay. Most especially when they hear you talk about it. So I think the mismanagement that the people are talking about is not in the election, it's in the communication. And this has to be made clear to everyone that needs to listen.
Thank you, Dotun. Adewale is still on this theme of trust. Will the delay in the elections have any impact on the credibility of the electoral process? And how will INEC work, or what does he need to do to maintain public trust in the Commission's ability to conduct free, fair and transparent elections?
No problem with trust of INEC. If there is a problem with the trust of INEC, is a particular section of the Nigerian populace in the south of Nigeria, in the southeast, parts of the south-south and Lagos, that have held a particular view, and they are very vocal and very vociferous. Most of the young people in Nigeria, first-time voters, are in the north. We never ask them questions, and they've never complained about the election. The truth is that looking for zero defect, looking for a silver bullet in any system, taking no responsibility for how you engage the system, these are all the things that we are culturalizing young people to develop. The reality of it is that you have a continuous improvement process, a process that has improved considerably from 1999 till now. The survey that the NBA did is very clear, and I'll try and read it out. Only 8% rated the election as poor or very poor. 27.1% were extremely impressed. 64.6% said they were somewhat satisfied. These are not failure marks by any stretch of imagination.
And that's from the Nigerian Bar Association.
Yes, yes. And the president of the Bar Association himself scored INEC 80%, which is an A grade. But we hyperventilate over small, inane problems that we have in a low technological environment. It is not to dismiss the concerns of people to say we can improve this. We have to improve it and see whether we can get it even better than where we're at. But that is far from saying that there is a crisis. There's no crisis here. And we have to be very clear. Part of our process is also going to the court to substantiate your allegations. INEC is entitled to its credibility until you can prove otherwise, that it is in any material way responsible for anything that you can call rigging. There are two areas where there's a problem in these elections, two states, Imo State and Rivers State. Those two areas are actually challenged in their statistical presentation of what was achieved in the elections. And that is going to be verified by the BVAS process and everything else. Let's watch this process play out.
So your suggestion is for people to relax and just allow the process play out and wait for the court's decision?
Let the process play out. If you have evidence, collect evidence. Keep your evidence and share it with the right authorities. Keep copies of it. Verify whatever you have seen. You have cameras, you have everything. Document what you have seen. But thinking that you can take the process into your hands and that protestation is what's going to resolve this, it's nonsense. You develop institutions through implementation and attrition. INEC is only going to get better through learning from its mistakes and improving what it can do. And I think overall, every single observing unit has scored them more than 75%. So what is the real problem here?
Okay, a fine place to go on a break, gentlemen. We'll go on a quick break. You're watching Politics Headquarters here on News Central Television, and we'll continue our conversation when we return from this break. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to Politics Headquarters and News Central Television. We're still talking about the postponement of the Governorship and House of Assembly elections. And joining me in this discussion, I have Dotun Ojon and Adewale Ajadi, both public affairs analysts. Now, Dotun, what lessons should the Independent National Electoral Commission have learned from the February 25th presidential election? And how will the Commission use this experience to improve the electoral process for future elections, including the one on March the 18th?
Okay, I think the first thing, and I'm going to be talking from my area of strength, I think the first thing is how to speak strategically, understanding your community at every point in time. Because if you're campaigning, for example, you get to each community, the way you engage them will be completely different. INEC understands the fact that a lot of we have a lot of new entrants into the political system. These are people that have never voted. I think it should have done more on the area of clarity, especially as it has to do with their voting and transmission of vote. I think this is one thing that should be learned in all of these as they continue the election. There's no doubt about the fact that INEC has improved, just as I said it the other time. From 1999, we've seen significant improvement. But it's also going to be unfair on the Nigerian people that they are not patient enough. It's going to be unfair on the young men and women who have a hope of having a better community, except if one wants to lie. If you are in Nigeria today and you can actually see the reality of governance, you will know that the rate of our growth is a bit slow. And this has frustrated a lot of people. I sat on an interview panel recently where we interviewed a few set of people, and these people came in with wonderful certificates and certification of MSc, MBA, and they were looking for a job that will actually fetch them less than 100,000 naira. And I looked at them, all I could feel was pity. These are people that we have told to go to university. They have gone to university. We have promised them that when they graduate, they are going to make something out of their life. They have gone to the university, they have come out, making things out of their life has become extremely difficult, if not practically impossible for them. So they are right to be angry. They are right to be expecting a perfect system. It's going to be unfair for anyone to say or think that the Nigerian people, especially the young ones, are not patient with the process enough.
Now, I'd like to come in, Dotun, still talking about
of what they should expect.
Now, I'd like to come in here, Dotun, talking about how you suggest INEC should improve its communication strategy. Do you mean in terms of frequency, its target audience, or the quality of its messaging? Because you already have a section of the population that have a default setting to doubt anything that is coming out of government institutions and always, just malign any government communication or any message that is coming from the government. How do you deal with that sort of thing? And what area of communication should INEC improve on? Should they take their messaging to social media? Yes.
See, it's not, I'm not talking about the consistency of the message. I'm talking about the clarity of the message. See, there's something in psychology called internally generated data, which when anything happens in any community, your first response to the happening in your community is a product of your experience. You call to remembrance what has happened to you before that you have already stored in your brain. For example, in 1998, I just left the secondary school. I got a paper called the Nigerian Tribune. The front page says that if Obasanjo becomes the president of Nigeria, a Mercedes Benz will be sold for 50,000 naira. That registered in my brain. It never happened. In 2003, there was another promise that privatization, once privatization happens, that majority of government institutions will work perfectly. It never happened. In 2007, there was a state of emergency declared in the power sector. The government said that once this is done, the power problem will become a thing of the past. It never happened. Don't I have any right or every right to now doubt whatever government is saying? Because whenever I hear any promise from government, my internally generated data always comes to play. And what do I remember? I remember 1998.
Failed promises.
I remember the Mercedes-Benz story. I remember 2003, the privatization story. I remember 2007, the privatization, the power story. So this is why we need to be strategic. And in strategic communication, you do not tell the people what you want to do alone. You tell them how you want to do it, which is the mistake INEC made by telling them that they will actually transmit results electronically. And they created an impression within the community that that is the sole way of transmitting results. And people were running with this kind of message. So it's not about consistency, it's really about clarity. I expected that it should have been clear from the beginning that we also have the power, because you know that your people are not written. You know, nobody will say, I do not know that Nigerians are not written. And it's not their fault. It's also what they are born into. And it's going to take us a lot of time to actually come out of here. But clarity will not take off anything from us to be clear on any kind of message. So that is where I am going to. And also the number two thing, which is what I've said, I think the Nigerian people have been patient with the system. They've been patient with their government. And we shouldn't hide under, because even after the election, nobody came out to protest. Even after the election, people doubted the process because of the transmission, not because of voting. Despite the fact that you are in Lagos, I was in Ondo State, we saw intimidation. But that could be in pocket of places because nobody is expecting a perfect kind of election. That's why people overlook that, because they themselves were not expecting a perfect election. What were they expecting? That the vote that the people cast should actually be the figure that will reflect in Abuja.
Thank you, Dotun. Now, Adewale, Dotun spoke about intimidation, and quite a number of observers have said the security operatives during the presidential elections were lax and not proactive in the presidential elections. They pointed out to incidents where they failed to act while thugs disrupted proceedings. What needs to be done to ensure that the police lives up to its obligations and responsibilities?
I think it's unfortunate, because if you look at the code report that you are likely quoting from, actually, they never put a figure on the number of so-called intimidation. But if you go and look at the report by Yaga, they said in 6% of the circumstances, there was allegations of intimidation and assault, and 6% there was inducement. Now, if you then look at the same code report, they're talking about 71% security presence, 73% polling units with 2 security personnel, and they have not identified one single incident. You see, there are 2 sides to what we do that is very problematic. And I'm not here to make a case for government. I'm here to make a case for Nigeria, and hopefully eventually Nigerians. Because when we talk about governance, we talk as if these people are Martians. It is this level
We're all
of
part of
fear.
the system.
Yes, it is this level of negative energy and fear. I have been fortunate to watch my great-grandfather walk all over Ibadan to my house. He never entered a car. I watched my father come from a father who was a middleman between cow sellers and buyers. My father became the chief executive of a bank. I am an international consultant. My children are international executives. In my lifetime, I've watched less than 80,000 Nigerian graduates in 1979 become 250,000 matriculating every year or more. It has been a seismic shift in the country we call Nigeria, but we don't even appreciate the progress we have made. Do you know for a fact that 55 to 56 years is the highest life expectancy Nigerians have ever had, and we have it right now? Do you know that the Gini coefficient of Nigeria is about the same as the United Kingdom, meaning that inequality in the economy is not as bad as we make it out to be? But you see, these issues are not what we focus on. We focus on what did not work, and we ignore what is working.
So whose responsibility is it to project the positive news? Is the Nigerian National Orientation Agency not doing a good enough job? Or does the media in general also have a responsibility? Because people seem to be drawn to those bad news. That's what gets people, excited and agitated. And I really don't understand. I don't have the answers.
Well, you see, I live most of the time in Nigeria, even though I'm in the UK right now. And I just want to make that clear. I work for the UN in Nigeria. I work with the Nigerian police half of the time, and I do my own work half of the time. So let's be clear. I'm not a foreigner to anything that's going on in Nigeria, and I'll be there over the next few days. The issue is this, that the National Orientation Agency has failed us presently. I'm not going to hide that. And it's something I've written about many times. However, we have a responsibility for our children, our children's children, our children's children's children, to allow them to understand how you build a great nation out of the country we have. You don't build it from a negative feedback loop, where because you have a gap between expectation and reality, everything is thrown away with the bathwater, including the baby. We're supposed to design a positive feedback loop, but we are orientated to always seeing a negative as a failure. So if the system is not perfect, we don't look at what has improved and what we can build on. Now, let's take this to where we are at today. It is important to say to INEC, there are things you can improve, certainly. I love what my colleague is talking about in terms of communication. It's important. We don't do the intangibles very well across the country, especially government. That's true. But to say, as a result of not doing that, we're in a crisis position, that's a different order. We need to balance these things out. Because if we burn this entire thing to the ground the way we are going, and I think we are going to do that, I believe we are going to do that.
And people need to be more responsible in their communication. I saw a tweet from a Sierra Leonean the other day, and it said, Nigerians, you don't know what you have. How can you be calling for war because you're not satisfied with the outcome of the elections? That his grandmother had to live in the bush in Sierra Leone during the civil war for months on end. She was feeding on bugs. So people, I don't know if you have to police social media. That's another conversation for another day. But I think Nigerians need to, check themselves and watch this sort of messaging they communicate. Now, Dotun, yes, go ahead, please.
Quick minute. Nigerians are dying. They're dying in the Northeast because we have low-intensity warfare there, and we have been fortunate that there's been improvement in that. Because it's not happening in Lagos does not mean people aren't going through incredible pain. The issue is not whether we go through pain or not. It's what do we do to improve these things? We're a developing country of 200 million. This is a phenomenal number. We have over 400 different ethnic groups. This is a phenomenal number. This is an incredible challenge anywhere in the world. It's not going to be easy, but we have to have the mindset of long distance runners, not mindset of 100 meters runners. That when something does not work with you, we just throw our hands in the air and say, throw everything away. I'm sorry, I went on too long, but yeah.
Thank you, Adewale. Now, Doctor, could you provide more information on how the 1 week delay will impact the logistics of the elections, including ballot distribution, polling station setup and security arrangements? Does a postponement automatically translate to more preparation time to make the process more seamless on the part of INEC? Yes.
No, I actually received an information. I received a text message from INEC, day before yesterday, to come to the central bank to come and be part, to come and look at what's it called, the material before they are distributed to the local government. Later on, I received another message from IPAC. IPAC is the umbrella body of all the political parties that has actually been shifted because of the postponement. This we give them. I think ordinarily, apart from the BVAS, that INEC is ready for the governorship election. So this has given them an ample opportunity to actually cross their T's and dot their I's. But most importantly, just as I've said, there's a need for INEC to work on the transmission of results. Everything that has happened in this election went reasonably well. Where the grudges of the community lies is actually the issue of transmission of, and let's be very factual. As a person who has been involved in this process, you discover that the manipulation that happens in the polling unit, there may be manipulation within the polling unit. It's nothing compared to the manipulation that happens in the process of transmitting or of transporting results. What manipulation happens within the polling unit? Maybe overvoting or some people denied an opportunity to actually vote. But the manipulation of figure is the greatest problem that has faced our election process in Nigeria. And INEC itself has actually come out to say this, which is what led to electronic transmission. In fact, INEC was so careful that he said, okay, I'm not just going to write it and send to the portal. You are going to snap it. So that's going to make it a bit difficult for whoever wants to hack and change number. They understand this process. So they must not allow their point of strength to, at the same time, become their point of weakness. The point of strength of INEC, why a lot of people gave INEC kudos, was not just what's it called, the change in the Electoral Act. It's about the inclusion of, and you remember the debate, the back and forth in the National Assembly. Oh, should we include it? Should we not include it? You even remember at the point that they said, okay, they will only resort to electronic transmission of vote if NCC, Nigeria Communication Commission, gives the assurance that there will be network in those places. But they went back and forth, and there was an agreement that this actually can be done. This is a major improvement. It's a major strength on the part of INEC. I do not now want this strength to become something of weakness. So the attention must be on how to transmit vote. People are coming out to vote. This is a huge plus. It's a huge plus on you see, because you cannot have a community of 200 million people, and only 15 million will be determining the destiny direction of your country. You can't have a community of 200 million people and just about 25 million. So if we have more people in the process, it will guarantee the credibility. And we've had more people now. We must not destroy what we have built by this little mistake of not transmitting results or by not communicating appropriately to the understanding of the people.
Thank you very much, Dotun. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Ojon, and Adewale Ajadi, Public Affairs Analyst. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both. I do appreciate your insight and contribution and also your time on the program. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.